Good morning, good day, good evening, wherever you are. Welcome. This is Humanity Rising's program introducing Living Resonance Leadership Master PhD program. I am Cheng. I'm the founder of this Living Resonance Leadership program. And today's topic is I Ching through the lens of the resonance code, developing leadership through generating resonance. And first, let's, as probably some of you already know, that our regular host, Jim Garrison, is in Mexico in a retreat right now. Usually he would open up the space for us. And today he will open up through a video that he just recorded yesterday. So let's watch his video.
Hello, everyone. I'm Jim Garrison. I want to welcome you to this session of Humanity Rising. I'm coming to you from Teotihuacan, where we have a group of very dedicated and sincere pilgrims that are spending this week in consecration before the pyramid complex of this very, very ancient and sacred site in Mexico. For those of you who don't know about Teotihuacan, it's an extraordinary site, very vast, and it's probably the greatest pyramid complex in the world, next to the great pyramids of Egypt, which most of you will be familiar with. It's interesting to note that the configuration of the various pyramids in Egypt are replicated in Teotihuacan, and both pyramid complexes replicate the positions of the 6 inner planets of our solar system. The base of the Great Pyramid of the Sun in Teotihuacan is exactly the same as the base of the Great Pyramid of Cheops in Egypt. And the base of the Pyramid of the Moon in Teotihuacan is the exact height of the Pyramid of Egypt. It's also worth noting that on April 9th and August 12th, as the last ray of light recedes from Egypt, from the Great Pyramid of Egypt, that last speck of light before it goes over the horizon, at that very instant, that is the first light that you can see from the Pyramid of the Sun in Teotihuacan. It's an extraordinary thing to take in, that these very ancient monuments that nobody knows when they were actually built, they are just more ancient than certainly our current civilizational cycle. And we have been there, and today we walk what they call the Avenue of Death. From north to south is several miles, and at the base on the south is the Pyramid of Quetzalcoatl, the great feathered serpent. And then you walk up the avenue, and halfway up to your right is the Pyramid of the Sun, and then all the way at the end is the Pyramid of the Moon. And it was architected as a great serpent. So you start at the Temple of Quetzalcoatl and you walk, and then you go up a hill or some stairways, and then down and flat and then up. And so you're being swallowed by the great feathered serpent. And then you come out right before the Pyramid of the Moon. And the whole process is about an initiation. You know, in the first undulation, you dedicate earth, your body, and everything of your corporeality. And you thank infinity for it, and you let it go. And then you go down there, and then it's the water, and then it's the air, and then it's the fire. And with each process, you're letting go of something and you're thanking life for who you are, but also recognizing that death is a cycle and that all of our experimentations and all of our curiosities are followed by the angel of death, because something has to die in order for something new to be born in our spirit and in our imaginations. And so we were just contemplating on how life always ends in death, and death always brings new life. And we're forever in this process. And as the great Greek philosopher Plato said, all philosophy ultimately is a contemplation on death. It's our mortality that defines who we are. It's our certainty of our demise that gives us a sense of value. And it is the great truth of existence that death and life are part of the same Ouroboros, the snake eating its tail, the great archetype of human unconscious realities and the human psyche. So I just wanted to bring those images in for your contemplation today as you listen to Spring Cheng and her colleagues talk about regenerative health and the work that she's doing there in China and in Asia. I'll be back again tomorrow with a report on our pilgrimage back into Mexico City, where we're going to go see the shrine of Guadalupe, the great patron saint and mother goddess of the Mexicans. And then on Thursday, of course, is the solstice, and we'll go back to the pyramids and go to the Pyramid of the Sun. But I just wanted to welcome you in the spirit of the feathered serpent. I want to welcome you in the spirit of the avenue of the angel of death. As everything comes to its end, everything is reborn, and we find ourselves transmuted into pure gold. So thank you, everybody. Welcome to Humanity Rising, and I wish you the best of this day.
Wow, what a introduction. And it's always Jim's introduction is always a perfect opening to the program. I want to underscore the initiation ritual that he is going through right now, and the congruence with what we want to talk about today. One is the our relationship with the elemental, the earth, water, fire, air, and second is actually the topic of the theme of death as a cycle. And so that leads into what we're talking about today is not just an introduction of I Ching, but also we're talking about the rebirth of something new. Something dies and something new regenerated through our work. So I have Joseph here, and I'll introduce. Let's see. Yeah. So let me bring Joseph into the space, and then we'll start with a qigong exercise to in a embodied way to honor the energy that Jim brings in, and that will also thread through our program today. So Joseph is well, Joseph has I would say an outstanding resume. And he has 40 years of experience in consulting and leadership development. He's a teacher who has traveled all over the world. He has participated in many rounds, generations of transformational work that has been participated in with many different teacher and teaching, and has his own consulting company. And in 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago, I had the joy to meet Joseph, and we started to both of us committed to a very intense collaboration, which resulted in the publication of the Resonance Code, which laid down the foundation of the rebirth of the I Ching. And I will soon invite Joseph to tell you his story with I Ching. I think for now, I would like to invite all of us to start with the Qigong exercise to feel this elemental energy that's thread through this ancient classic. I also see that Judy Neal, another faculty of ours, logged in the space, but I think Judy, maybe you, yeah.
I was trying to log in not as a panelist, and it's the only way it would let me in.
Yeah.
Apologize. I want to be here, but I don't want to be on the panel, of course.
Right. Yeah. So maybe Georg can send you a participation link. I know that there seems to be some glitch.
No problem. Judy will rejoin as a pure attendee today.
Yeah, good to have you.
Can't wait to hear what you both have to say.
Right. Okay. So if you can, I would invite you to stand, and you can certainly adapt this to your sitting position. So I would like to start this because it's also an honor to this the ancient language of I Ching as it's really at the foremost is a primordial language to honor the energy that has formed our body. So first, let's just take a deep breath and feel our feet in contact with the earth. And feel our gravity of our body supported by the skeleton structure. And this gravity, this sense of we are in relationship with the earth, the gravity of our own body is the first layer of felt senses that has contributed to the formation of our being. It's the I'd say it's the first song that we hear from Mother Earth, and it's stored in our body for so long. Often we can live our life ignoring its presence. But in doing this Qigong, let's bring our awareness back to feeling our weight distributed through our bones, and laid on the bottom of our feet. And underneath our feet, with our mind's eye, I'd invite you to imagine our body as a tree, and the roots of the tree extending underneath our feet into the ground. And just like the trunk of a tree, I want to invite you to pay attention to our spine. The bottom of the spine, the tailbone, is pointing downwards. And as human and primates, species of primates, we have the privilege to have an upright position. So there's a sense of levity through the forces of evolution that has been endowed into our body that's pointing upwards. So our spine is basically suspended in between this gravity and levity. And I invite you to imagine that just like a tree, the branches shoots from the top of our head into the space above us. In Chinese, we have this saying that the spirit lives 3 feet above our head. And these are the branches into the subtle dimensions. And now we're suspended in this, the subtle energy of the sky and the dense energy underneath us, the earth. And we're at this neutral position. This is actually called Wuji, the place from which all potential is pregnant. So from here, let's take a breath. And on the release out breath, let's, with our finger pointing gently, bend our knees gently and pointing with our mind's eyes towards the tip of the tree root. And from there, we are calling for energy from Mother Earth to raise our arms towards the sky, towards the Father sky, towards the subtle dimensions above our torso. And from there, we're asking, inviting an energy, a fresh energy coming from the sky, descending into our body, washing through the internal organs and through our pelvis into the legs and all the way through the feet back into the tree roots to nourish the Mother Earth. And then we come back to neutral. And then we are again resting into this neutral position and feeling the feeling how our body responding to this after this one cycle of alchemy between the earth and the sky. And let's do it again. Take a breath in and release, and reaching down to the roots, only to so far that with your body you can reach down with your mind. And from there, we are inviting the Mother Earth to raise us towards the Father sky. And from there, we're guiding the energy flow into our body to integrate, heal, nourish, and invite the flow through our body, through our legs, feet back into the earth, then come back to neutral. All right, thank you so much for joining us in this ritual. All right. So today our main topic is I Ching. It's called Book of Change. In the I means change and the Ching means classic. And I want to say that when I was born in the Cultural Revolution time. That book was actually banned. It was called A Toxic Grass at the time when I was born. So it wasn't until in my 30s, in my late 30s, I encountered this book in the United States, actually, in the West. So I have to say that for me, today bringing I Ching into Ubiquity program as part of Ubiquity University, as part of this master PhD degree program is a giant turn, 180 degree of turn of in relationship to where I started. And in this process, Joseph is someone has played a pivotal role in with his collaboration enabled this elevation of this ancient wisdom. So maybe with Joseph, can you start by sharing with us, your life context and how did you encounter I Ching, and how is that? Yesterday you told me you actually lived with you for 50 years.
Thank you, Spring, and thank you so much for the beginning, the somatic practice. I feel so much more prepared to have this dialogue and with you and with all of you out that are viewing us, because working from the inside out, from the spine up and down is a beautiful, beautiful beginning for me and for us. It was in Berkeley in the mid-70s, and I had just, it was around the time of my first Saturn return, for those of you who follow astrology, which means a time of great transformation, deep structural changes, although I didn't know it at the time. I was certainly in the midst of it. And one of the changes that had happened for me, I was leaving, I had just left a 5-year career preparing to be a research scholar in European history. And I realized that wasn't my path, and I left. At about the same time, my first marriage, my young marriage, was ending, and we were divorcing. And there was a small amount of money, very small, that seemed to be in conflict and in contention. And I was preparing to go to this divorce proceeding the next day. And I had a copy, I'd had actually this copy of the Wilhelm version of the I Ching, but I'd never used it. I'd heard about it, but I'd never used it. And so I said, I will use it. And I cast the hexagram using the coins. And right here, you can see it, right here on the cover of this old book, I wrote the hexagram number 6, which in the Wilhelm version, which is translated from Wilhelm was a German who translated it from the Chinese, and this is translated into English, obviously. This hexagram represents conflict with the energy of heaven going up and the energy of water, which goes down, which could be seen as conflict. And it actually, in the text, specifically talks about how one would comport oneself in a conflict of a civil trial and trust the impartial judge. I said, what the heck? How could this, throwing these random 3 coins and building this hexagram and looking at this old book, how could it talk to me about what I was going to, as a way of being the next day in my life? It was a very significant moment. And that caught my attention, as you might imagine. And as Spring said, it began as of now, as of last month, a 50-year relationship with the I Ching as a teacher, as a practice, as a consistent, I would say it's been my most consistent inner practice. I have others, but this is the one that I keep returning to. So when I met Spring, and we were brought together by a mutual friend who knew that I might, Spring and I, to use an appropriate word, would resonate. He was exactly right. So that's what I would say about the beginning and my relationship with I Ching, and the amazing relationship I've been privileged to have with you for the last 8 years in this context. There's more to say, of course, and we will.
Thank you. Yeah. I want to underscore several things in Joseph's story. And for those of you who have never physically done casting a hexagram, we might try one actually in today's program. We'll see. But the action of casting a hexagram And that's the reason that it was banished at the time I was born in China, because it's you might say that in a dogmatic scientific way, it's very it's basically it's a random coin. I have these 3 coins here. You toss 6 times, and there's an algorithm that will help you to build a symbol which we call the hexagram. And this act of random tossing coin does not have a place in the dogmatic scientific view. It's not viewed as rational. It's not viewed as logical. And of course, and by now, actually, quantum physics, quantum view of the world has already gone beyond that dogmatic mechanic view of the world, and start to understand that there are subtle energies that can be harnessed by random events, random patterns. And that actually is the majority of what's going on in our life, that our cognitive mind is so bogged down by the mechanical worldview that we become blind to these subtle energies. So, but then the question is, how could a random toss of coin for 6 times result in a pattern that exactly reflect on what Joseph experienced at the time, and so congruent? And what does that mean? How does that, how if that is part of our the makeup of our cosmos, how would that, it basically I'd say overthrows a lot of the basic assumptions of our life. Our entire social economic system is based on this kind of subtle energy not existing. So that's the inquiry. That's why we need a master doctor degree, because we're literally starting a new science, standing at the edge between the quantum perspective of the subtle energy that's infused our life and our social and our social life. So and I want to couple that. I want to complement Joseph's story with my own another story of mine with I Ching. So it's interesting that my story also has to do with intimate relationship. Joseph's story is about divorcing, breaking down of a marital contract. And this is, and you would see that a lot through the book of Change, because the book of Change is talking about the relationship of yin and yang, these 2 energy, and it's the marital contract, man-woman relationship, and this is the traditional Chinese society. The role of men and women is very socially fixed. So, but it's using these kind of relationship, familial, intimate relationship as a metaphor to talk about how yin and yang energy interact, complement, and transform into each other. So I want to tell my story, and this is, I would say, an unusual story to tell in the public. So at the time when I encountered I Ching as a in my I was 36 at that time. I was just about to step out my participation in the mainstream culture as a scientist, and I got involved with that was the first Western man that I got involved in an intimate relationship. However, that man was married, and at that time, and so it was a very painful. It was a very it was what has brought us together was definitely this mutual attraction of the East and the West. There's a lot of creative energy that has been generated because of our mutual recognition and also desire to learn and discover. And at the same time, my position, I was married then too, because as you can imagine, there's a lot of painful emotional entangle. And at that time, that was the beginning of my start studying with I Ching. I want to understand what's going on in my life. And a hexagram that I repeatedly been shown to again and again is number 54, called Marrying Maiden, which shows a young girl being married into an authoritative, powerful man's household as a concubine. And the formation of that hexagram is exactly exactly depicted my experience at the time, my life situation at that time. I was an inexperienced young woman wanting to explore what's my contribution, my creativity is can contribute to the social change, social the bigger picture that's happening around me. And the person I was involved with was a person with a significant status and position in the society. So that was hugely so that showing the coins that lead me to these hexagrams that reflected my life situation has posed a very interesting inquiry to me, is that I realized these affairs that we considered as personal in our modern world, intimate relationship, family affair, our emotional experience, it actually has a cosmic ring to it. And that's what opens up to my inquiry. I realized what I experienced is, of course, it's personal, but it's actually more than personal. It's beyond my Spring Cheng's personal, emotional love affair. It has a resonance with subtle energies that are happening around me. Otherwise, it will not be captured by the coin. And so that actually is the theme that has thread through my relationship with I Ching. And I realize that because well, let's see. Let me just pause here for a moment because I have I can go on to say other things first. Let me just turn to Joseph and see if he has anything to respond or to comment on what I just said.
One of the things that when we were talking about this 8 years ago that struck me as being very interesting and true was that the randomness of the random generator of the pattern was a way of going around or beyond the rational mind. As you said, it doesn't make any sense. Synchronicity is not causation. The things that happen at this, one of the basic principles of I Ching is synchronicity. And there's this beautiful essay at the beginning of the Wilhelm translation by Carl Jung, where he defines the term carefully. And so there's something about the randomness that accesses information that the rational mind can't access and can't make sense of. And so part of the opening is being willing to receive information to another channel than the thinking mind, which is the corrective, as I quite believe, at the time we're in. Jim talked about there's always something being digested, there's a death cycle and a life cycle. and things can't go on forever. And yet we're in a world that pretends like we can grow forever on a finite planet.
Mhm.
So this particular medicine, this particular map of consciousness, which we're asked to receive something and put ourselves, he was using the phrase, I think, like a supplicant walking through the wave of the serpent. There's a receptiveness that I Ching calls us to, and the resonance code articulates this in a way appropriate to the modern era and also appropriate to the need to elevate the feminine from the concubine or the wife to something else. Maybe
Mhm.
that's part of the story you would tell as well.
Yeah, thank you. So, what you just said, why is this I Ching, how is it I Ching relevant to our time? I think was it yesterday, I told the story of the beginning, the origin of I Ching, 25, about 3,000 years ago, 2,500, 3,000 years ago, roughly that period of time. King Wen, who's the person who he was attributed to the person who started this this round of interpretation of the hexagrams 3,000 years ago. He was in a similar kind of situation as those of us are in this tribe, like Humanity Rising and all the associated network. That he's also facing a stark, very grave situation that he's the leader of a small tribe. And they're living through the tyranny of a very powerful king, that if they could not see their future, because with that tyranny, the king is using his tribemen as a sacrifice to the whatever deity that the king was worshiping. And so he had to find a different way to engage with the future where his tribe can live. And eventually he did. He established the Zhou dynasty, which is the longest dynasty in Chinese dynasty history. So the way so just like what Joseph said, in our today's world, we also live with tyranny, which is this unlimited growth industrial military complex that is enrolling all of us onto a death march if we do not find a new way into a future. And something as insignificant as almost trivial as throwing a random pattern may well be, and it's not just the only oracle system. There are many oracle systems, of course, and this is a particular one that growing from the land of China. It will tune us. It will find us to attune, intuitively attune to a future that is beyond this death march. And the reason I brought the story of the concubine is that I want to say that I want to invite you to see my story and the story of concubine as a metaphor. That this young woman at a disempowered position is a metaphor for the part of us that every one of us that feminine intuitive creative feminine creativity led by intuition, that regardless whether whatever gender we're talking about the feminine as a consciousness, not a gender construct, that part of us in some way more or less is in a concubine position, is in this disempowered position to the part of us that is bought in or roped into this unlimited growth, military industrial complex power system. I'd say, that formation is probably universal, might be a bold statement, but something like that more or less exists in every one of us in today's world, participating in our economy and social activity. So re-establishing this feminine creativity and re-establishing her as a re-establishing that part of us as a leader in our life world is what is the inquiry that leads to our work. Yeah.
There's a beautiful expression, a metaphor called the trim tab is a small piece of a large rudder on a large ship, and the trim tab turns the opposite direction that the ship wants to turn, but it will turn the big rudder with less with leverage against the current, and that turns the large ship. And for me, what you're saying, Spring, is that reinvigorating the creative feminine, the universal mother energy, is the trim tab, one of the key trim tabs for possibly moving humanity off the death march, out of the meta crisis, which is a path to extinction. So that's one of the reasons why I think the resonance code and the energy you're bringing to it and the teaching that you embody is so important for today.
Thank you. So maybe we talk a little bit more about exactly what is hexagram, and yeah, maybe we talk about that, and possibly doing a reading and show and tell. What do you think?
Lovely, perfect.
So, I mean, in a way, this is very simple. The Tao is the dance of yin and yang energy. The yang is the active principle, and the yin is the stillness, the being principle. You can see it as a dance between being and doing. Like yesterday, actually at after chat, I talk about. I used the metaphor of egg and sperm to describe the yin and the yang. The egg is full, and it's in stillness. It's full of life, and yet it embodies a whole. And the yang energy, the sperm is highly condensed into it's actually the sperm as a cell no longer have much life substance. What its sole purpose is to deliver genetic information, and it has this really strong moving energy that launch on a long quest to find the egg, and the meeting of the sperm and the egg will give rise to new life. And again, I'm using so much metaphor because the entire I Ching text is metaphoric. It's metaphor upon metaphor upon metaphor. The reason that it can be so universally applied is because it's never talk about the concrete objects. It's using this concrete object to metaphorically speaking to invisible force. So here I'm yeah, so I'm using this egg and the sperm, which is very concrete, but it's describing the yin and the yang and how they are complementary forces of life, and their unique feature that they each have, the extreme propulsive and moving energy of the yang and the full richness of the yin. So in I Ching, we use a solid line to represent the yang, and a dotted or not dotted, a broken line represent yin. And the hexagram is just the stacking of these yin-yang lines in 6 repetitions. So 6 lines give rise to a hexagram. And there are 64 total possible configurations of how this yin yang line stacking together, because it's 2 to the power of 6. 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 together is give rise to 64. So I don't know if you can tell or not. In a way, it shares the same structure as computer language.
Binary.
Binary, yes, it's
On
a
off.
binary code.
And as you pointed out in the book, in the resonance code book, it's also the same number as the number of lines and codons in DNA, 64.
Yes, it's our DNA code. It's also 64. So there's something very archetypal. It has to do, with the numerology and sacred geometry, the principles that govern these primordial energy, how their permutation and configuration give rise to life. So that's the kind of the essence of the hexagram, which is what I call it. It's almost like a musical notations of life energy. So it's a meta language. So that's the thing I want to highlight and emphasize. People often ask me, what's your translation of I Ching, and which one you like the best? And they're all, these are all that. So the translation, the English translation, is translation of the interpretation of that meta language that Kim Wing and Confucius has done 2,500 years ago. So it's not so that translation has not reached the source, which is this meta language. So what the resonance code is doing that's unique, which I think will empower and actually give more life, give more enlivened, will empower the use of I Ching, is that I feel strongly we need to connect our felt sense, connect our feeling sensing capacity directly with the source, which is the meta symbols that makes up the hexagram. So another metaphor Joseph and I talk about, maybe you can tell me more again what you said to me yesterday about pattern language and how that used in architecture. Yeah.
There's an architect named Christopher Alexander who wrote a book called A Timeless Way of Building. And in it, he comes up with, I don't know exactly, I think it was 108 patterns. And he called it a pattern language for building. And you'd go to a specific spot and feel in that spot what was wanted. And from those patterns, design your building. So he called it a pattern language. And it seems to your point that I Ching and the 64 patterns, 2 to the 6, is a pattern language for the flow. I believe you articulated it's the flow of the Tao into the 10,000 things, so to speak, which is reality. So it's a pattern language and a map of the psyche, of our human awareness, and also as a navigational aid through time. Yeah. How useful is that in a time of chaos? As someone called it, we're paddling in constant white water. You really need a good navigational aid. So that was what I was talking about and thinking about. And learning to speak and not just think, but inhabit, as you were guiding us in the Qigong. Feel the patterns coming through the body as well as think the patterns with the mind. So that's one of the things I've learned from you so much, is to pay attention to how these patterns are showing up physically embodied in a way that I think is the brilliance of part of what you're teaching.
Yeah, thank you. I see I was glancing at the chat, and there like these questions about the relationship between memoir writing and I Ching, and also I think someone asked me to say more about musical notes and musical notation and I Ching. I want to unpack that a little more. When I say musical notation, again, it's a metaphor. It doesn't necessarily mean that the 64 hexagram is like do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. But what I mean is that, you have this hexagram, say our hexagram is yang line. That's the most, there are two most extreme hexagram, the Cheng and the Kun. The Cheng is all yang line and the Kun is all yin line. So what I mean by musical notation is that because our nervous system is our interface with the world and the interface with ourself. And what does it mean when you receive a, let's say, all yang line hexagram Cheng? What basically the hexagram is telling you that the energy around you, the subtle energy around you, is using your nervous system as a tuning fork that will match the frequency of this all yang lines. So basically you see 64 frequency patterns, and this Cheng is a particular extreme frequency. So and I can tell that, for example, that when I remember the moment when I received the Cheng, the all yang line hexagram, was when I released the resonance code as the first publication book. That energy immediately has took me to Scotland, which I've never been before. And I traveled around Europe in like 5 countries in 3 weeks, something like that. It was extremely highly mobile, highly propulsive, active energy that basically the hexagram is teaching you. So when I receive something like that, I take it as a instruction, say, learn how to be this this form of frequency here, and toning your nervous system to match this frequency in a physical, embodied, emotional, and cognitive way. So that's what I mean by using the hexagram as musical notation. And also that's the importance of keeping the memoir work, because it's our own life event, what happens in, so when I do I Ching, and Joseph, you can talk about your I Ching practice too, is that I record the importance. It's basically, I see my awareness as a radar, and I record all the different dimensions of things that showed up on this radar. My internal feeling, the deer that are passing through my yard, maybe video popped up from my YouTube feed. All these things that has subtle meaning and a connection that is, I see that as a communication that I'm receiving from the Universal Mother to telling me at this moment, I am feeling into all these things popped up on my radar screen and how they landed on my nervous system as a way to attuning to this particular frequency pattern that I received. Yeah.
Perhaps, Spring, you'd say just a word, and maybe we will then cast a hexagram about how that interface or that connection between one's nervous system and one's awareness and all the environmental factors that you are tuning to. The key word that you brought forth is resonance. There's a resonating, and people say this a lot now, I resonate with this, I resonate with that. Is there more about resonance and musical notation that's worth saying before we throw a hexagram, do you think?
I think to answer that question, it's this again, link to the memoir writing and also link to our Friday's program, the psychotopology work that Joe is doing. It's important to listen to different parts within ourselves. I think in modern world, because of this monolithic pursuit of peak experience, we tend to kind of smush our inner world into like a single identity that's presentable to the world. And it's in our feelings and our emotions and somatic experience, we can find the diversity of our inner experience. So I think even in many of the popular, pop culture, modern psychology, there's lots of kind of this practice of typing, say, which personality type or, which enneagram. I'm not saying, these work when they are done in a serious way, it's very holistic, but to over-identify ourselves with the dominant personality, smush our inner world. And to do this work, to use ourselves as a tuning work to resonate with the universe, with the subtle energy, we need to reopen up our inner world and to find the inner diversity, to the inner ecosystem, to find the authoritative voice inside of us, the part of us resonant with the industrial military complex, and find the part of us that's the concubine, the female creativity that has been suppressed. And once we find that, we are able to reattune them, play them like a musical instrument again. And the I Ching practice, through the resonance code lens is really, come back to that, my beginning story. At that time, when I was entrenched in that traumatic relationship, I was caught in that relationship for 3 years, but it was during these 3 years, I was able to tease apart these two different parts of me, the part of me that identify with the powers, the status quo power, and the power. And through that, I was able to find in contrast, the other part of me that is my feminine creativity. And then through finding these two parts and being a witness holding these two parts, I was able to play these two and invite them to the energy to flow back and forth and have them dance again. So that's what I mean by resonance, is to through these subtle feelings, senses, to re-enter our inner world. And today where I am, I think the self that the I Ching talk about is different than self-identity that we in our common, everyday life talk about. The I Ching, has been traditionally used as a training referenced guide for leaders, for tribe leaders. What does it mean to be a leader in that time? It means you offer yourself as the container for your community. That includes all. So I think it's, when we see whatever is the tyrant, the forces outside, when we can find the inside of ourselves, we have amassed a different kind of agency to participate in the evolution of human life, our social life. Yeah. Yeah. So after talking about so much, shall we try one and to demonstrate what this process is like? So Joseph and I each have 3 coins in hand. Yeah. And the common practice of I Ching is holding a question in mind. And for me, actually, Joseph, how do you do? Maybe you can speak about it. How do you
Well,
do?
there's a code. I have someone just asked any coins that can easily be identified head or tail. I used to use English half pennies a long time ago. So one side of these old Chinese coins has a certain, looks like this, and I call that a yang line, unbroken. And one side looks like this, and I call a yin line. And so you get 6 of them, and you have various permutations depending on the random, how they fall.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And there's other methodologies as well, but this is a very simple, accessible one.
Yeah. And of traditional methodologies is manipulation of the yarrow stick. But this is a very commonly used, also very traditional methodology. And for me, the way I open up inquiry is I usually reflect on the different streams of inferences coming to this moment at this moment. And then ask the coin to show me the energetic configuration that has resulted into this current moment, and also leading, and also the directionality of change or evolution that will lead to the next movement of evolution. So, and I think for us today here, it's, we're already presencing many of the influences. Joseph and I, our collaboration, the ancient history tradition of I Ching, and also you all, and the space that that stewarded by Ubiquity and Humanity Rising. And also this, like Jim laid out in the first day of our program, where at the time, so there's this Kohi prophecy that he brought that Earth's Mother is giving us very strong information that she needs to restore herself. The human development reached a point of threshold that she is waking up, that she needs to make her move to carry on the evolution that's going on that will prevail on this planet with or without humans awakening. So we are sitting at this threshold point. And so I'm going to I'm going to alternate with Joseph. I'm going to throw the first one, and then I'll have Joseph to throw the second, and then we alternate 3 times. That will give rise to a hexagram.
Where will we record it, or will we record it?
Oh yeah,
public?
so let's try that. I'm gonna start the whiteboard. Does that work for people?
Yes, I can see it spring it. Well, it
Okay.
says communicate with comments, but
Can the people on the webinar see it?
I don't know, but I can, I'm presuming.
Maybe
it
someone
can.
from chat, can you give us a yes, okay.
Mara says yes.
Okay, all right. So, okay, great, we got it. So I'm just throwing the first, let me clear out my space a little bit. Hear a loud clanging sound, that's when I throw my coin. So the first one is two what do you call how do you call the 2 sides of the coin? I just blanked out.
Well, yin or yang.
Tail, yeah, 2 head, 1 tail, which is a yin line. It's an unchanging yin line. So So that's why I draw two
I can't
lines.
see the drawing yet.
Oh, you can't see the joint?
I can't, I don't know.
Can people see the drawing? Maybe this,
Okay, so maybe I just, whatever.
huh, interesting. You cannot see it.
It's fine as long as everyone else can see it. So the
Oh.
bottom, and it goes from the bottom up if you've never done
Yes,
this. So
yes.
she just threw the number one line, which was a broken line. It was all twos, right? A 6.
No, it's a 8. So there's
an
no
8,
explanation
sorry.
to do. So there's head is 3 and tail is 2. So I got 2 head, 1 tail. So it
Okay,
number it
I'll
assigns to
throw
8.
the second one.
Mhm.
Okay, it's a 9 line spring. It's a pure yang line that changes all heads.
So when it's 3 heads, it means it's a changing line that it changes from flips from yang to yin. Okay. Okay, so now it's my turn. So again, mine is an 8.
Great. You want to mention anything about the trigram before I go to the next line?
That's fine. We can
Okay.
just, yeah. Mhm.
This is also 3 heads, a 9 line.
Also 3 heads. Okay.
Yes. Elizabeth asked, what's the question we were posing? Maybe we'll just keep going and talk about that after.
Mhm. Right. Mhm. Mhm.
Did you do the 4th line?
Yes, 1, 2, 3, 4. Mhm. The 4th is the 9, right? Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay. And now I'm doing 5th line. Fifth line is uh 7. It's a 2 tail, 1 head, so it's a 7. Yes. Mhm.
And here's the 6th line.
Mhm.
2 twos, 1 head, another 7. 2 twos and a 3.
So another 7.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
Would you remind me what the lines 2 and 3 are, since for some reason I can't see your whiteboard?
So it is the lines 2 and 3. You cannot see.
I can't see the whiteboard for some reason.
You cannot see the whiteboard.
Everyone else can. So I'm just writing it down. I didn't write down. I have.
Yeah. So it's basically heaven over water, and the
Got it.
line 2 and 4 are
So,
changing line.
yeah, okay.
Mhm. Yeah. So it hexagram 6 to 20, I think. That's mhm.
Another 6.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
So that's number 6. It's hard to write with cursor to number 20. So we can. So it's interesting that I can read the descriptions and the names I gave using resonance code. Let's see. Let me find that. Okay, so number 6, in resonance code, let me close this down. Let me close this whiteboard. So number 6, in resonance code, I named it as creative tension. The prose I wrote down for it is, what are my truest needs? How do I discern my truth when different voices conflict? When I attune to my destiny, all my needs can be fulfilled, but not always in ways I imagined. And then the number 20 that changed to is, let's see where that is. Number 20 is, the name of it is Subtle Vision, Power of Sky Yang. My body and mind remain still and steady. My inner vision can see invisible beauty. I sense the furthest possibilities for the future.
And for those of you that may never have passed a hexagram, there's in every book or of the I Ching, there's a code reading sheet where you can see if the upper 3 is in the case of number 6, they're all 3 yang lines. It is the trigram, there's 3 lines, which indicate the heaven, the energy of rising. And then again, the bottom 3 is the energy of water, and it's also considered to be, they call it the abysmal, at least in the Wilhelm translation, which means the water heads down to the abyss. So you have this creative tension between rising and falling. And in the Wilhelm, he says conflict, but the resonance code of Spring has named it, I think, beautifully, creative tension between the falling and the rising, which points to a pattern of that what's so right now and the pattern for moving into the emerging present, emerging future.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I see that there are questions about this process we're doing. How do I say that? So maybe just more mechanics of explanation. There is something that's being assigned that doesn't have it's just a device. It's a mechanism that doesn't have much rationale. It's just the head is assigned 3 and the tail assigned 2. It's just a way for you to arrive at either a yang line or yin line, a changing or unchanging line. So I would say, this is something that you have to, this is actually a very interesting process that it allows you to, through the process of doing it, you have a relationship to tune into the subtle energy that's embedded, hidden in the numbers. It's a different way of relating with number. I think in our everyday life, the numbers are seen as ways to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, linear counting. That's, number is at the base of our linear thinking is 1 + 1 + 1, 1 + 1 results to 2, 2 + 1 is 3, and it goes up and unlimited. But this is a different way of relating with numbers as qualities. This throwing of these coins will give you, either 3 heads or 3 tail, or 2 heads or 2 tail, and it inevitably result into certain quality that's being captured by the random throw. It's a practice that in the process of doing so, you will start to, I think somewhere in the chat I saw that over time, you will start to grow a new sense that has to do with the quality of subtle energy.
And by paying attention to quality, it's an interruption in the standard enchantment with quantity, which is at the root of modernity, where the disenchantment of the world, because quality can't be seen, quality can be intuited. You can't prove quality, but yet it's very, very important. So it's part of the re-enchantment of the world, I would say.
Yeah. Yeah. So I've seen questions in the chat, and yes, Resonance Code is available as a book. You can get it on Amazon or on Resonance Path website. There's this question about the casting, but there seems like more question about the casting, but I'm not quite connecting to what that question is actually.
There's one yang and two yins, which add up to 223, which is a 7, which is a yang line that does not change. So the book of changes, the changes is built into the numbers. There are numbers that change from a yin to a yang or a yang to a yin, which gives you the second hexagram. It doesn't always work out that way.
Yeah. Maybe we should, Joseph, how about we, let's see. Maybe we should talk more about the program and the program we're intending to do, and how that connect with leadership.
I'll say a little bit about the leadership part, maybe, because that's been my work. I've done leadership development as my main vocation, transformational education in favor of leadership development. And the wholeness of the parts that Spring was talking about, creating a more coherent inner landscape when one is leading, one's capacity to sense into the complex emerging future and then articulate a way of being with that, which also requires a way of acting, is, you could say, is a very high art of leadership. And it's a developmental path to leading from wholeness. And given the nature of our current state of our psyches, it's very much about rehabilitating the inner feminine in both sexual males or biological females, where that creative feminine may have been suppressed to fit into the current paradigm. So there's a lot more I can say about it, but the quality of leading in complexity, which is where most important leadership has to happen, is greatly enhanced by increasing wholeness or coherence or integrity. And this is a practice that will aid in that greatly.
Thank you. Yeah, so the resonance, so in this module that we intend to lead, which will be following the memoir writing. So the like I said before, in order to use us as a tuning fork to resonate with the frequency that comes through the hexagram, we need to discover the diversity, the different parts inside of ourselves, and that is will come through the memoir writing. And once we have a capacity to listen to and also to work with the different agencies, different type of agencies, the being, the doing, and the other kind of agency. Once we have that kind of familiarity, then we can enter into ongoing practice. So it's not so much of, I find that, in our modern days, there is a tendency of wanting answer like immediately. And in doing this practice, it's actually, we need to break up this, we need to not be kind of entirely subjective to this tendency of needing the answer, but just to patiently record what happens in every reading, what happens not just in you, but around you. How does the world responding to you? What the world is showing you? You will gradually, and also not just record in through text, but you can draw, you can intuitively, use songs, poetry, and I think Joseph, you might want to share some poetry that comes through you. Just in your relationship with these elemental energies, the creative side of you can also be part of this practice. You gradually basically compile your own dictionary of how you are in communication with the universal mother. That then this dictionary, this compilation will be personalized to you as a leader of the community. And like I said, I emphasize in the ancient time, I Ching is not intended actually for individual use. There's actually, it can actually lead to unintended results. It's actually intended for people who are taking a shamanic role, lending their own body and heart and soul as a service to serve the community. So in one hand, this resonance code path to I Ching will become more personalized. On the other hand, it's personalized for the purpose to be a leader in the community. Yeah.
Two things there that come to mind. One, there's a beautiful concept that Robert Greenleaf brought forth called servant leadership, which is exactly what you're talking about. Two, there's a style of leadership called adaptive leadership, and the subtitle of the book, Ronald Heivitz's book, was called Leading Without Easy Answers, which is exactly what you were talking about. How do you be in the face where you don't know, and you may not even know the right question? So how do you be in the face of that level of complexity? The I Ching practice prepares one to be a great adaptive leader, I think. So there's a lot more, of course, we'll be able to say about it when we work together.
Right. And so for those of you who are interested, here is the website of our course, our program. And we don't have an exact date for our offer yet, but you can sign up. You can register in the form on this page to indicate your interest. And we may have other small kind of tryout experiential seminar for people to take before the official offering. So get yourself signed up and so we can get update.
I would say for those of you interested in the Resonance Code, Evolving Leaders Toward Wholeness, that book, it's an artist's creation. My dear friend and partner, Spring, brought so much art and beauty to it. Although the black and white copy is fine, I urge you to spend the extra few dollars and get the one in color because it is so beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you. Oh, wow. We are already approaching 90 minutes.
Boom.
That time goes fast. There's more. There's a lot more. I think, it's in 90 minutes, we try to attempt to cover 3,000 years of, to articulate how this 3,000 years of history of I Ching is at the point of reinterpretation, rebirthing through our effort. It's a lot, and I appreciate you holding the space. And there's also a lot more. That's the Book of Change, I Ching, is a different kind of logic. And if we try to use our rational, logical mind to try to analyze it and get it all clear, it doesn't. It's like it's the same thing about the authoritative power and the concubine. There's some wisdom in the I Ching is to be held, is to be. You will. There are many things. So the thing is, in China, nobody would claim they understand I Ching. If you in China, so if you say I understand I Ching, people would, it would be a quackery. It's very people likely think you are quackery because it's not meant to be understood. If you think you understand I Ching, I would likely to say you probably missed something. It's art. It's almost like a modern art in a way. It's not meant to be understood. It's meant to be used as a device to get into in contact, in constant dialogue with all these I mean the mysteries, hidden mystery in our psyche. That is a unending process of exploration. So for those of you who can and will, we will see you. I will be at the after chat. Joseph, are you going to be at the after chat?
Absolutely, wouldn't miss it.
And I invite you to engage more in dialogue. Many actually teaching of I Ching, I think it's actually more alive in actual live interaction and dialogue. Thank you so much. And I will, so let's see, tomorrow. So tomorrow we'll bring Judy Neal and Paul Kiminski, and the theme is songwriting, creativity, and leadership. And this is really about embodying that energy. So memorizing I Ching oracle, this is all about dropping our awareness back into our body, back into the universal mother's embrace, to discover that the reservoir of life energy that is our birthright. And songwriting is about tapping into that reservoir and express ourselves vibrantly, literally using vibrations. That's why we call this work a resonance code. It's all about vibration. And when we sing into the world, we are sending our vibrations out into the world. And it doesn't matter or not whether there's audience or not. I mean, I think that's a pitfall it's kind of a trap of our modern time, that we have to have an audience or how many likes and in our YouTube channel and followers. It's not, yes, eventually that will come, but at foremost, we need to source that our energy and sing into the world with or without the audience. And with that, the right audience will come. So yes, so that's a forecast, that's a preview of tomorrow's program. And we will sing together tomorrow too. So yes, I think that concludes our program today, and I'll see you at the after chat and tomorrow. Thank you.